Hi guys, this is Tablet-News.com and I'm here with a handset called the Oppo Find 7, or better said the Oppo Find 7a, because this one is the Full HD version of the phablet, not the Quad HD one. Once again, there are two versions of the device. This is the Oppo Find 7a that comes with a Full HD screen, and then there is the Oppo Find 7 Simple with a Quad HD screen and 1 GB extra of RAM, so it has 3 GB. This one has only 2. The product was launched in spring 2014 and it's priced right now on Amazon at $625. The design is very similar to the one of the OnePlus One. This one is a 5.5-inch phablet that measures 9.2 mm in thickness, while the OnePlus One measured 8.9 mm in thickness, so it's a bit thicker. It's also narrower than the Galaxy Note 3, in case you're wondering, and the Find 7a weighs 170 grams, while the OnePlus One weighs 162 grams, so it's also heavier than the OnePlus One. It has pretty much the same width and length as the OnePlus One, plus or minus 1 mm. So the same here, compared to the OnePlus One. It comes in white or black. It offers a pretty good grip, and I have to say that one-hand usage is decent for a phablet. It also has slim enough bezels considering the size, and the facade is pretty much a fingerprint magnet. At the back we find the dotted texture, but overall the build of the device is solid. It adopts a rectangular design with a slightly rounded bottom part and top part, and also I will have to say that it's made of polycarbonate and there are chromed areas on the sides. And I should also mention that it looks a bit like the Oppo Find 5, but in an evolved version. At the front we find the earpiece, sensors, front camera, obviously the display, and below the display there are three capacitive buttons. We got the home button, we got the back button, and we got the menu button. However, the light of these capacitive buttons is barely visible, so that's maybe a minus for the future. I would also have to mention that there's a discrete blue notification light at the bottom here, right here in this ridge. So when you get an email or the device is charging or it runs out of battery, you get a light shining here in the bottom part. Now let's see what we can find at the back. At the back we can find a microphone above the camera, dual LED flash, and the speakers at the bottom. Once you remove the cover, which is pretty hard to do, you'll find the following things. As I said, pretty hard to remove the back cover. Here we go. Below the cover you can find the card slots. We got here the micro SD card slot and here the micro SIM card slot, if I'm not mistaken. We got the battery, and as you can see we got dual speakers. Okay, now let's put this back and proceed with the design. At the top we have the audio jack, while at the bottom we find the micro USB port and another microphone. On the left side we got the on-off button that's not very protruding, so it's very hard to press and hard to find. It doesn't offer very good feedback, and the same thing with the volume buttons, very hard to find and to press because they don't go deep enough, they're pretty shallow. Okay, so that's pretty much it. We got a massive device but also solid, a 5.5-inch phablet that's comfy to use, and aside from the buttons it offers a pretty good experience on a big diagonal. As far as hardware goes, we got a 5.5-inch screen here. It's a Full HD IPS LCD with Gorilla Glass 3 protection, and the screen to body ratio is 72.9%. The specs list of the phablet also includes a quad-core Snapdragon 801 processor clocked at 2.3 GHz. There is also the famous Adreno 330 GPU, 2 GB of RAM, 16 GB of storage, and the microSD card slot offers up to 128 GB of extra storage. The two cameras, well, we got a 5-megapixel front shooter for selfies and a 13-megapixel back shooter with dual LED flash for the main pictures. On the connectivity side, I would have to say we're fully stocked. We have all the famous options available. There is Bluetooth 4.0, Wi-Fi, dual band, BGN, Wi-Fi direct, we got DLNA, we got GPS, NFC, micro USB 2.0 with USB on the go, quad band GSM GPRS Edge, LTE and HSPA. In this section we like to call others. We got accelerometer, proximity sensor, active noise cancelling, and a special speaker system that we'll cover later on. The battery is a lithium polymer unit with a 2800 mAh capacity, and in our test we achieved with Wi-Fi on and brightness of 50% and a loop of HD video playback, we achieved 9 hours and 1 minute of playback, so I would call that reasonably good, since this is a phablet after all. So if you intend to play video and keep the brightness of 50% and Wi-Fi on, you'll achieve 9 hours and 1 minute. It's above the OnePlus One that achieved 8 hours and 54 minutes in the same treatment, but below the Galaxy S5 that achieved 11 hours. The strong point of this battery is rather its charging is incredibly fast. We managed to charge the phone from 0 to 100% in 1 hour and 20 minutes, which is incredible. In 30 minutes of charge, you'll get from 0 to 70% in that time. So with just 30 minutes of charging, you'll get from 0 to this duration, which is once again pretty impressive. Now in the settings area, you can learn more about the battery functioning and its modes. First of all, we get this graph here showing us the time used already and the estimated availability. Obviously, there's a power saving mode that you can activate here, and it has a bunch of special settings like screen power saving that will reduce the brightness, close touch feedback that will reduce the vibrations, and you can close some connectivity aspects like GPS, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth or data network. Then there is the battery reminder. It will remind you to charge when the phone power is less than 40% at night, so it's a good idea to charge the phone overnight. However, the device charges very fast, so that's not a problem. Then there are the power consumption details, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so overall it's a very good battery, but I am more impressed by the charging. Once again, if you put this phone in a charging mode for 30 minutes, you have 70% juice, so that's impressive. It should last you about 1.5 days of average usage, while the video playback is 9 hours and 1 minute. Now, as far as the acoustics are concerned, let's see what we've got here. We're using this custom player. It's a music player, and its interface goes something like this. You have a local list of local tunes, you have online music, you got online themes if you like to switch it up a bit, and let's see what else. We got a simple and minimal UI. That's the interface of the tune you're playing. And now let's actually listen to a song. Okay, so just listen to some tunes. The conclusions are that we got a loud and clear experience, good bass, all notes are heard okay, and the sound is crisp. We have this option here, it's called Max Audio. I keep playing with it. It has several sub-options involved. Well, basically it's a special technology, Max Audio. It comes from the company Waves Audio. It makes the sound more natural, so to say. And if you press the menu button here, you'll see other options like My Favorite, Add to List, Search Lyrics and Album, and finally Settings. There's a lot of stuff to play with here. We got Play Online Music with Data Network, Auto Download Lyrics and Album Cover when using Wi-Fi, Shake to Skip, Download while listening, Keep Backlight on in Lyrics mode, and finally Max Audio, which is the money shot here because there's a lot of stuff to play with. And then there's Dirac HD sound, but this one is activated when you plug in the headphones, and then you can clear the cache of pictures. Once again, the main mode here is Max Audio with special options for the following modes: Music, Movies, Games and Custom. In Music, you can play around with the audio frequency like this. You can reset it or tweak it like this. In certain portions of the frequency, you can play the tune again. And you can also play with the dialogue, volume, treble or bass, just however you want it. Going back, the same applies for movies. Since you have dialogue, it kind of makes sense, and the games, You can also play with the same settings. Finally, we got custom. Here you can really let your imagination go and play with the audio frequency. Okay, now that we're done with the audio frequency curve, you should know that this player supports FLAC files, and the thing I mentioned before, which was Dirac HD, this option is triggered when you pull out the headphones and connect them to the device. So these are the headphones that are bundled with the device. I'm connecting them to the audio jack, and now the Dirac HD option is available without other special options. Well, what this does is it makes you hear sounds that weren't there before. For example, the drums get an extra set of percussions. That's only one example of the power of Dirac HD. And now, as far as the headphones are concerned, you can see here that they look pretty nice. They have a premium look to them. They're slightly inclined, so they go to an angle in your ear. They're comfy. They also isolate the sound nicely. They have a deep bass, they're loud, they're clear, they're very good. I would even say they can battle Samsung's and Apple's best headphones out there. They also have this nifty little remote that's pretty discreet compared to other remotes. So once again, very good sound through the headphones, pretty good sound through the speaker, and no FM radio available on this model. So keep in mind, we have very good headphones here. I have to say that again, I cannot stress that enough. And now we proceed. We also use the decibel meter to actually measure the power of the speakers. And here we go. This is the decibel meter at the back of the phone, 85.1 decibels at the back, while at the front, with a bit of muffling, 84.2 decibels. Compare that to the iPhone 6 Plus and it's 83 decibels, I would say we're doing fine. Meanwhile, the OnePlus One is a bit better at 90 decibels, and overall I would call the audio good. I feel that this model can easily overtake any new iPhone when it comes to acoustics, because it has solid speakers and also solid headphones. Now, as far as the screen is concerned, what you're seeing here is a crisp 5.5-inch Full HD display with a 401 ppi density and an IPS LCD panel. So 1920 over 1080 pixels, and we got a custom video player with a very minimal and simple user interface. It comes with support for DivX, XVID, AV files, MKV and MP4s, and there's also an recommended section, channel, My Center. We got an online selection of movies, TV shows, ads, sports and all that that come with Color OS. Now, as far as the actual experience is concerned, let's check out a video. And among the options provided by the video player, there is this one. It's basically just like pop-up play from Samsung. We've seen it before on many other custom players, but now let's enjoy the power of the screen. The image is crisp, clear, bright. We got wide viewing angles as usual for an IPS. And the image is pretty vivid. This is a JDI display. It's a bit reflective in sunlight or in other light sources, and maybe a bit cold when it comes to the colors. The pixels are of the RGB stripe kind. And now let's analyze the brightness a bit, because there's an interesting aspect here. Here are the pixels, RGB stripe under the microscope, and the interesting aspect that I mentioned before is that we have three different levels of brightness applied to the screen. We have a level at the top, a level at the center, and the one at the bottom, with the one at the bottom being influenced by a slightly yellowish hue on a white background. So at the top we achieved 365 lux units, in the center we achieved 357 lux units, and at the bottom we achieved 327 lux units. Overall, we are below the OnePlus One that scores 404 lux units. We're almost equal to the Xperia Z2 that scores 366 lux units. Not exactly bad. At least we beat the LG G3 and its 343 lux units. However, we are clearly below the Galaxy S5 with its 480 lux. Overall, I would call this display okay. It doesn't break any records, but it's also not weak. And now we go to the settings in search of some special display options. We got here the brightness, wallpaper and screen lock type. With screen lock type actually having some interesting options like card unlock, glass panel, we got the weather unlock that we actually applied, travel unlock, and some more that you can download online courtesy of ColorOS. some related to the zodiac signs and other goodies. And once again, I have applied the weather unlock because I found it to be interesting. Okay, so that's the weather unlock. We go further into the options: sleep, auto rotate, battery percentage, easy light, which shows you notifications, low battery or charging via this system here. And then we got key lights, those ones here that you don't see. Interactive screensaver is also an option that can be triggered. Colors, Google Photos, news and weather, photo frame, photo table, and all that. We got holiday wallpapers, and finally font. So these are all the options of the screen. Once again, an okay display, doesn't break records, it's not weak, it has decent brightness, cold colors but good looking during video playback. And now we proceed to the camera. At the back we have a 13 megapixel shooter with a dual LED flash. This is the same Sony sensor as the one from the OnePlus One handset. It's the IMX214. We got a dual LED flash here. We have f2.0 aperture, and the sensor measures about 1/3 of an inch. It's a CMOS BSI sensor. At the front we have a 5 megapixel selfie camera. That's actually pretty good. This camera, the main one, is able to take 50 megapixel shots with interpolation, and also can take raw files as shots. Okay, now let's check out the user interface. We got this castle here. So let's place it at the center. It's a very minimalistic and simple interface, as you can see for yourself. On the left side we got a front camera shortcut, we got flash options, and finally the settings, also looking minimalistic. And we got the resolution, which is 10 megapixels 16:9, 30 megapixels 4:3, or other lower options. Then we got a timer, or activate or deactivate, shutter sound, white balance with a few options, and an auto one. Tap to trigger the shutter, voice shot, scene modes, the usual ones, and video mode. Here we have 720p, slow motion in 120 frames per second, 1080p, HDR, 4K or 480p. You can select either one of them. And then we have voice beauty. This is an interesting feature. You actually have to say some specific voice commands in order to trigger some beauty features. And finally we have mirror, storage, and location. Those are the settings you can play with. Okay, so let's leave the camera on the normal capture mode. And speaking of modes, these are the modes you can play with here. We got normal, which is, as the name says, the normal capture mode. And next up we got HDR, speaks for itself. Then we got HD picture, probably the most interesting mode available here. So if you press the shutter button, you will capture 50 megapixel shots. It takes about 5 seconds to generate. It will take 10 13 megapixel shots, snap them onto each other, and create a huge picture with impressive detail. I just did. This is a huge shot, and you can zoom in and zoom in and zoom in and enjoy the huge level of detail that not even your eye can see. So that's the HD picture, one of the most coveted features of this camera. Let's see other capture modes. We got beautify, pretty much speaks for itself. If it detects a face, you can create a shot, and then you can remove the wrinkles, unwanted hairs, add some makeup. Got panorama, we got slow shutter. Slow shutter has a few options. We got auto, and we got seconds, 0.5 seconds, 1 second, up to 32 seconds. The idea is to create longer exposures, which is very good for low light capture. And next up we got audio. Just like the Samsung feature, it takes a photo and a few seconds of sound. Then we got GIFs. Everybody wants to create GIFs to create memes. And then we got scan and paste. Basically it scans stuff so you can paste it later on in your project or clip art or stuff like that. We got poster search, which is very interesting. If you have a magazine or a poster, it can look up on the web that content, person or article. And finally we got raw shots, so you can take DNG file format pictures with bigger size and more friendly with post-processing. Okay, now we proceed even further. Now let's actually check out the camera performance and start with the focus. I would say that the focus speed is quite okay, and also the capture is quite fast, almost instantaneous. We got 4x zoom. And now let's actually take a picture of the castle. Regular picture, normal one, selected here. And let's check it out. You can also add notes to the shots. Very good level of detail, as you can see here. 13 megapixel shot, quite impressive. So that's that. Okay, we're done with the castle. We got rid of it. Now it's time to go to the gallery and enjoy some daytime shots. I have to say we got over 100 of them, so that's impressive. By the way, this is the gallery area that can be split into folders. You can see cloud albums or simply a collection of all your shots organized by date. And you can also create a jigsaw thing here. And let's go to all pictures, select camera. We have 135 shots to enjoy. As you can see, they're selected in various sizes to keep the user entertained. Okay, so let's analyze them. They're taken during daylight on a pretty sunny day. First things first, we got good colors, although a bit on the cold side. The blue sky looks quite nice, so the flavor of blue here is quite good. We got good details, good exposure and white balance, no focus problems, nice shadows, and as you can see here, a pretty impressive macro of a little flower. We also did some HDR shots. That are pretty discreet. So regular shot, HDR shot, doesn't exaggerate with white and highlights details, so that's a good HDR. Once again, we also have that nice macro, and here you can check out some colors. As you can see, the colors are quite cold, they're not very vivid. However, the blues and greens look fine, while the red isn't exactly impressive. The camera seems to behave well even with sunlight in front of it. No halo effect here. Some of the pictures with extreme sun tend to feel a little burnt, but that was to be expected. And once again, we have very good blues, not so good reds, and good greens. Some more colors here, yet another good blue. A slight exaggeration of HDR here, or simply too much light. And yet another case of HDR exaggerating a bit and putting too much light into the picture. Now we're about to see a panorama. This is it. It's not very wide, but at least the stitching is fast. And finally, this is an HD shot. As I said before, a 50 megapixel shot. The actual resolution is 8160 over 6120 pixels, and the level of detail is huge. You actually have to enjoy this picture on your desktop to actually get what's happening here, because on this small screen you don't exactly get the magnitude of the shot. The pictures are pretty much crisp. And another sample of HDR, this time done right. The 5 megapixel selfie cam is also quite good. It takes shots that for some reason lack noise, and they're quite good, as you can see here, so the level of detail is okay with the selfie camera as well. Some more shots here, good exposure, good white balance, excellent brightness, no focus problems, and even the low light shots are quite good. And now this is HDR done right this time. A few more shots, and now we're entering low light area. As you can see, still pretty crisp and pretty good, especially if you tweak the settings a bit. We also have a pretty powerful dual LED flash that can be seen in action here on this very dirty keyboard, taken in the dark with a dual LED flash, and it's looking quite fine. These pictures stand out by their lack of noise, good colors aside from the reds maybe, and a bit on the cold side, and the HDR will combine more shots into one with ideal exposure. The HD mode from before, the one with 50 megapixel shots, is not very impressive in my book, and I would call this model a bit below the PureView Lumia cameras as far as 50 megapixel shots are concerned. Now in the video area, we have a few videos here that may interest you. So we have a pretty big one that's 56 seconds long. Prepare for big noise. Let's turn it down a bit. By the way, surprisingly good acoustics. We're capturing video. This is a Full HD video, MP4 file, 30 frames per second, a surprisingly low bitrate of 8 mega per second. And also some brightness problems, as you can see here. But once again, the audio is very good. There are no focus problems and there are some stabilization problems. Okay, so we move further to the other samples. Okay, so another video, we got this one here with cars. It shows us good focus, but also pretty weak stabilization. And also the ability to face full sunlight straight ahead without too much problems. And now let's see another video. We got one that's 23 seconds long. Should be here somewhere. This is it. Let's start it from the beginning. This one actually involves some walking, so stabilization was put to the test. Once again, focus remains good, but stabilization it's kind of shaky. And once again, Full HD, 30 frames per second, and that poor bitrate of 8 mega per second for some reason. We got good white balance, good exposure, poor bitrate, and the HDR videos that this camera can do will highlight details nicely. As you can see, when zooming in, the quality of the image drops a bit and the shaky cam remains a problem. The details will look nice, but only if you don't zoom in, and I have to say I'm about to criticize the bitrate quite a bit. Another shot here with more color this time, and once again stabilization remains poor and quality drops when zooming in. Overall, I would call the camera pretty much the equal of the cam from the OnePlus One, below the camera of the Galaxy S5, and clearly below the camera of the Sony Xperia Z2. However, it's not very far from the iPhone 6 as far as photo quality is concerned, considering the extra feature is actually a bit above the iPhone 6. You can also do a bit of photo editing if you want. So let's take this shot. Edit picture. We got options like fill light, highlights, shadows, autofix, some documentary vignette, posterize and lomo, saturation, black and white, sepia, negative tint, and sharpen, crop, rotate, flip, and all that. Okay, we're done with the camera. It's time to discuss aspects like performance. And I'm going to start with the gaming performance. After playing 15 minutes of the game Riptide GP2 with all the details set to max, we achieved 40.9 degrees Celsius, which is a bit on the warm side. However, the game runs with all the details at the max level, so that's fine. As far as the web browsing is concerned, we got Chrome as the default option, and now let's enter Tablet-News.com. Chrome is fast as usual, fluid scrolling, checking our website out in landscape mode. And now let's go to the keyboard, which is basically a stock keyboard with some swiping involved. This is hello. Let's try to write phone. So that's pretty much it. Okay, now speaking of phone, as far as the actual phone calling is concerned, we have an interesting option. It's the anti-harassment option. You have blocked calls, you have a blacklist, you can intercept spam calls. We also have smart dial, we have a holiday mode, so you can let the whitelist people go through your blockade. The device can also be set up to vibrate when the call starts, to let you know. Sometimes you call people, the call starts and you don't know it because it's absolute silence at the other end of the line. And now talking about phone calls, we got a loud earpiece, clear sound, good signal, and very good noise cancelling. Now, as far as the benchmarks are concerned, let's have a look at the photo section where we have the screenshots. And I have to say from the start that I decided to compare this model with a few powerful devices. So here we go. I decided to compare the Oppo Find 7A with the OnePlus One that shares many of its specs, the LG G3, and the Samsung Galaxy S5. So first things first, in quadrant we scored 22,018 points, got beaten by the OnePlus One that scores 24,000 points, while the LG G3 scores 22,235 and the Galaxy S5 scores 22,739. Next up, we also did the test in Antutu, and the score here was pretty big, 45,869, actually very impressive, considering the OnePlus One scores 37,421. The LG G3 scores 35,637 and the Galaxy S5 34,712. We also did a test in Nanomark, obviously, and the result in this test was 61.8 frames per second, while the OnePlus One had 63 frames per second and the LG G3 59.9 frames per second. The Galaxy S5 scored 60.1 frames. And we also did a test in Velamo. Let's see how that played out. This is the HTML5 test. We scored a huge 3567 in the HTML5 test using Chrome, while the OnePlus One had 3002, LG G3 had 2417 and Galaxy S5 had a bomber 1645. We also tried 3D Mark. As you can see here in the Ice Storm Unlimited test, we scored 19,170, very close to the OnePlus One that has 19,397, while the LG G3 had 16,095 points, and the Galaxy S5 finally 18,632. I have to say that all these four phones have Snapdragon 801 processor. They have 3 of them have Full HD screens and 1 of them has a Quad HD screen, which is the LG G3. Also 2 of them have 2 GB of RAM and 2 of them have 3 GB of RAM. Those with 3 are the OnePlus One and the LG G3, because that's the version we're comparing here. Next up we got Geekbench 3, where we scored a pretty impressive 1004 points in the single core test and 3045 in the multi-core one. OnePlus One scores 969 over 2626, the LG G3 scores 960 over 2333. Finally, the Galaxy S5 854 over 2533, so I guess we're actually getting a good score here. We also did a test in GFX. That should be found here somewhere. Here we go. And as usual, the test in GFX involves frames per second. In the T-Rex off-screen test, as you can see, it's been cancelled here, but if you look it up on the web, you'll find in official databases that the Oppo Find 7a scores 28.3 frames per second, the OnePlus One 28.4, LG G3 27.3, Galaxy S5 27.4. We also pulled the speed test, and we achieved 20 Mbps in download, 20 Mbps in upload via Wi-Fi. The OnePlus One has 26 and 22, the LG G3 has 20 and 21, and Galaxy S5 has 23 and 24. Next up, we should find Browser Mark with a score of 1654, while the OnePlus One scored 1368 and the LG G3 1187. Galaxy S5 had a huge 3250, but I guess that was an older version of Browser Mark. And obviously we also tried out SunSpider, the lower the better here, 869. We beat the OnePlus One that had 1048, and the LG G3 beat us with 652. Also the Galaxy S5 was the champion with 413. Overall, the Oppo Find 7a wins 4 of the 10 benchmark tests, and in about 5 of the 10, it faces better than the OnePlus One. And it's also very close to that handset in the rest of the tests. An interesting aspect here related to performance, and especially gaming performance. So as you can see, brightness is at the top level. We can run Riptide GP2 with all the levels set to high, all the special effects, splash effects and other cool stuff. Higher resolution, advanced settings, everything. Lens splash effects, boost blur, water reflection, water normal map, meshes, complexity, shaders and all that. So let's actually see how this is handled and how fast you can load a level with such graphics. Load it instantly, looks impressive, and let's see how it handles. Okay, so it was one of the few times you could actually activate all the cool and high-end features and enjoy this device's graphics quality. So 3D games run just fine here. Now I want to discuss about the software. This is the Oppo Find 7a, which means we're running a special version of Android. Here we go. This is Android 4.3 with ColorOS version 1.2.0 on top of it. Basically, it's an Android skin that Oppo uses on its devices. It may also be familiar because the OnePlus One uses in China ColorOS as well. It brings lots of customization, even starting with the dock area that you can see right here. Of course, these icons can be moved around, tweaked. You can have 5 of them here. Be careful not to lose the application shortcut, because I guess there's no other way to access the apps. So we have the customizable dock at the bottom. We have an apps list that's separated from the widgets one, and if you press the menu button in the home screen, you'll see widgets, most of them being non-stock ones. Then we got wallpapers, bunch of effects, themes, and this center area that's actually an interesting and original concept. It's called exclusive space. One of them is live weather, pretty much speaks for itself. You can apply it to the background, but as I said, the really interesting concept here is the one called exclusive space. We have 2 things here, photo space and music space. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to place music space here in this empty screen, and as you can see, it's basically an icon of a pickup of a disc, and everything is related to media here. You start playback like this, you stop it like this, you have the phone feature here, more music feature here, applications, and finally more stuff that's related to media. Okay, you can also get rid of this screen like this, and there's also a special photo space. You can see it here. Basically, this one allows you to snap Polaroid like pictures in this small frame here. Those are 2 examples. There is a timeline of your shots, and then there are the shortcuts here to the camera, gallery, applications, and more. And by more, I mean more multimedia features. So basically a combo of widget and home screen. That's what the exclusive area is for. As you can see, once you're in the exclusive area, the status bar is gone to give you more space to enjoy the feature. Now, if you want to talk about the UI, there are up to 9 home screens to play with here, as you can see. And if you keep the home button pressed, you'll trigger the famous multitasking area with swipe to close apps, and also with this special accelerate button that cleans up your storage and closes up apps. In the drop down area, there are 2 aspects to consider. So first of all, we got the regular drop down area with some quick settings here that can actually be expanded into more quick settings. We got a slider for the brightness, and we got notifications, so all of them are bundled in the same drop down area, both quick settings and both notifications. The usual quick settings are here: Bluetooth sync, lock now, NFC, hotspot, airplane, power saving, do not disturb, GPS, and stuff like that. And the other interesting aspect, if you swipe from the left side, you'll trigger a special gesture panel. So if you draw something like this, you'll activate the camera. If you draw something like this, you'll activate the torch feature. And the list goes on, and it's also customizable. These are the options you already have. You also can associate new gestures to send Weibo, go to website, turn on recording, open apps, and more. So basically a series of custom gestures that you can play with thanks to the drop down area. Okay, now let's access the security area, because there are some interesting features here as well. And first things first, a very nice design of the settings area, and I have to say it's better than the one from the Samsung Galaxy S devices with its TouchWiz interface. It's all cluttered and chaotic there. We have 3 tabs here: general, sound, and display. Very straightforward, very minimalistic and intuitive interface. In the general area, we have connectivity settings, we have advanced security settings. For example, we have screen lock, and aside from face unlock pattern, we also have a voice print unlock. I would have tried to use it, but it involves saying something in Chinese as far as I can see, and I'm not good at that. Then we got the guest mode, each one with his own private photos, videos, contacts, and hidden applications. We got application encryption, a do not disturb mode, notification center options, and statuses you can hide, data saving, virus detection, and information security. So this device actually has some pretty good security options, surprisingly good, and surprisingly a lot of them. Other things: location access, we got something called user center, where you can add your account, and let's go back to settings and storage, apps, and then there is something called gesture and motion, and this is actually pretty interesting. So we got custom gestures like the ones you saw before with the drawing. There's the black screen gestures. This we will do when the screen is off, and as you can see here, it's all about symbols. If you double tap the screen, you light it up. If you do a circle, you launch the camera. So let's try it. With a bit of lag it worked, but hey, at least it works. So back to the gesture and motion. We got customized air gestures, which actually reminds me just a little bit of the older Samsung features. So if I activate this, let's see what happens here. As you can see, I'm keeping my hand above the screen, and the same goes for the photos area. Reminds me of the time when Samsung used to care about the customers and bragged about having such cool features. Okay, and let's close it up. It's a gimmick, I know, but it's pretty nice. Telephone emotions, flip to mute, easy dial, easy answer. You already know them from, once again, Samsung devices. Multi-touch start camera, self-explanatory. You can also take screenshots using 3 fingers, double tap to lock, and those are all the motions you'll be able to play with. Other things worth mentioning about the Oppo Find 7a is that you can have widget on the lock screen, you can double tap to wake the device, and overall Color OS is a nice surprise, and I like its gestures, I like its security, and I like the reasonably high degree of customization. Now we're in the section where we like to have a look at the pre-installed applications. I'm happy to say there's not much bloatware here, we only have the basic applications. We got a calendar that has a memo section, a today section, and even an area where you can view stuff happening for the whole year. We got a clock, we got weather, with a pretty nice looking interface. We got notes, and notes has more features than you'd expect. We got the obvious keyboard, photo album, you can also write, and I mean handwrite here. Okay, break line, color box, space, and you can also doodle. And this is the color box area. So that's notes in a nutshell. Then there's files, a very nice looking file manager with categories, FTP, DLNA, file cleanup, storage, and cloud. Next up we got lock now, that basically locks the device. We got email, we got themes, with obviously options to download themes from stores, and all sorts of Valentine's Day related themes. And then there's music and video that you already know, plus the Photos app with a very nice organization and various options to set up your pictures in a jigsaw, slideshow, and things like that. Next up, camera, Chrome, Play Store, Facebook, News and Weather, Photos, Google+, Gmail. Then there's phone messages, there's contacts, there's settings, cloud service, system update, car mode. There's a folder with tools, calculator, flashlight, sound recorder, compass, service direction, downloads and backup. Then security settings, those are the ones you saw before, the ones from the settings. Once again, very cool. YouTube anti-harassment that you also saw in the phone section, and then Twitter, Dropbox, and the other ones that we installed. So those are the apps you get on this device. Okay guys, so this is Tablet-News.com, and we reached the end of the review. I'm pretty much sure you're anxious to see what the grade is for this handset. So what we're dealing with here is a phablet 5.5 incher, a rival for the OnePlus One. It shares a lot of things in common with that model. So let's see the pros and cons. On the pro side, it has an incredibly fast charging. You can charge it from 0 to 100% in 1 hour and 20 minutes. You can give it 70% juice in 30 minutes. We have a nice max audio customization, very nice headphones, good benchmark results, and generally good performance. It runs 3D games just fine with max details. It takes good pictures, but only good, not stellar. Also, it has some nice special options to play with in the camera area. I mean HD with the 50 megapixel shot, slow capture, RAW, and finally I like the Color OS interface, which is yet another plus. On the minus side, the design is quite massive. In spite of being narrower than the Galaxy Note 3, it's still a long device, and a big phablet. It costs quite a bit more than the OnePlus One that offers basically the same package and maybe a camera that's a bit better. So the price is almost double compared to one of the OnePlus One, which is not cool. And the battery could be better. I'm saying that it could be better because this is a phablet. If it were a phone with a 5-inch screen, I would say that 9 hours of playback would be okay. But at 5.5 inches, I expect a bit better than 9 hours. Anyway, the screen may be good, it may be bright, but it doesn't break any record. It's nothing out of the ordinary, and the colors tend to be a bit on the cold side. Finally, video captured had a surprisingly low bitrate. Now I'm going to give this model some grades. For the design, it gets an 8.7 out of 10. For the hardware, a solid 9. And the OS and UI a 9.3 out of 10 for a final grade of 9 out of 10 at Tablet-News.com. With the price, I'm going to give it a minus, so from the 9 out of 10, it drops 0.4 points and it receives an 8.6 out of 10 right here at Tablet-News.com. Okay, so the device is priced at around $600, a bit over $600. It's a 5.5-inch phablet. 8.6 out of 10. It's good at what it does, but in 2015 good just doesn't cut it anymore. You have to be excellent or you're out of the picture. So 8.6 out of 10. I would have to highlight the nice interface, the nice camera features and very good acoustics, plus the reasonable photo capture. That's it from us. 8.6. Bye bye.